There's a warning today that legal highs could soon claim more lives in Britain than heroin. A major new report calls on the government to act, and it wants a tax on alcohol sold in shops to help pay for better rehab for drug addicts. Adele Robinson has this report.
Addicts, that's what we reach for that escapism. It was my escapism when I was in prison.
Anthony's used a lot of legal highs, mostly during his time in prison.
I've taken Triple X, Sensia, Furays.
He's in rehab now, but in recent years says he's seen a rise in their use.
People are switching to legalise out in the community, and I think school kids at the moment are hanging around paper shops and asking people to go in and get them legalised. In the next couple of years, or the next 5 years, I can see being a huge problem, because the intensity of legal highs is a lot stronger than what you can buy street drugs.
Research from a major new report shows that legal highs were linked to 97 deaths in 2012. Hospital admissions due to the drugs rose by 56% in the years previous, and it's now predicted that legal high-related deaths could overtake those linked to heroin by 2016, at around 400 deaths per year. The Centre for Social Justice reports calling for new powers to stop shops selling dangerous legal highs.
I'm told you can get them over the counter on most high streets. Some are legal and some aren't, but all are easily accessible and for as little as £8.
So what week are you on now then? Week 7. Week 7 of your rehab programme.
James is recovering from a heroin habit. He's having the kind of residential treatment Staffordshire supports, and what the report says is in decline. It calls for a tax on alcohol to pay for better rehab.
2p on a can of really strong lager, and we're talking about 9p over a period of time. That would give us £1 billion to get everybody into rehab and start scaling it up to get people into recovery.
The tax would only affect shops, not pubs or restaurants. Even so, it's had mixed reviews.
Rehabilitation's a good thing. I wouldn't mind paying an extra penny or two in a supermarket if it went on to help somebody.
If you go to a shop, you shouldn't have to pay more.
Even if it helps someone, treat them, rehabilitate them?
Yeah, but will it?
The government's drug rehab services continue to be a priority, and it's campaigning against legal highs. For Anthony, it's simple. Stop shops selling legal highs, take away temptation. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
Well, a mixed reaction there, and we're joined now by Ed Boyd, the Deputy Policy Director at the Centre for Social Justice, and also here with us Charlotte Bowyer, the Head of Digital Policy at the think tank, the Adam Smith Institute. Ed, I'll come to you first. Just how dangerous do you think illegal highs are?
Well, phenomenally. What our report has shown is there has been a significant increase in the number of deaths that are linked to legal highs, such that by 2016 we could well see more people have deaths linked to legal highs than heroin. And this is a growing epidemic. And what we found in our report is there are ways of reducing use of legal highs, taking, for example, head shops out of our high streets to make sure it's less easy to get hold of.
Let's just clarify what you're talking about when you say legal highs. Are you talking about laughing gas? Are you talking about alcohol? What are you talking about?
So there's a number. They're officially called new psychoactive substances. And they mimic illegal drugs. So you've got things like called black mamba, you've got things called spice, which is mimics cannabis, but it's 200 times stronger. It's effectively illegal highs where the chemical structure has been slightly tweaked to make it legal officially, but has the same harmful effects of many illegal drugs, including heroin.
Charlotte, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, are you not alarmed by the research that the Centre for Social Justice has come up with? These deaths could overtake those killed by heroin in 2016.
I think that's a bit of an exaggeration and perhaps a slight sort of scaremongering sort of exacerbation of the actual fact. When you look at the reported deaths by legal highs, I think you had 97 highlighted in that report. Often that number comes down with sort of a further examination, and independent studies have been looked into these legal high deaths, and quite often they've highlighted that actually what's causing the death, or what was blamed on a legal high, was not actually a legal high in the first place. For example, PMA or GHB, which have actually been illegal for a number of years now. I think we've got to put this into some sort of level of context. I think when you're looking at alcohol-related deaths of 8,000 people a year, I think 100 people, yes, it's worrying, but it's perhaps not this level of sheer terror in an epidemic which is overtaking us. I think Ed is incredibly right that legal highs are dangerous. I think there's a number of risks associated with them. They're incredibly difficult and abstract compounds, but I think by the government's attitude of shutting down these things as soon as they come out, what happens is one drug, say methadone, is made illegal, and 5 more spring up in their place: Energy 1, benzofury, and these are all incredibly experimental, and there's less and less known about them. And I think what's fueling this epidemic of dangerous drugs is the fact that the government's clamping down, and there is absolutely no education out there for people who want to take these drugs on how to use them or what the effects might be when mixed with other drugs.
And I think that's probably a point we'd see eye to eye on. There needs to be more education. They're called legal highs. I've got lots of friends who've just come back from festivals and nearly ended up taking them because they thought, well, they can't be that harmful because they're legal. But we strongly believe that, alongside giving education to people so they know what it is they might be taking, you've got to cut down the supply of these things as well. I mean, you're talking about things that are effectively in many ways similar to heroin, cocaine, ecstasy, extremely strong cannabinoids as well. And what we've seen in Ireland, because that's the model that we're trying to copy here, is that if you bring in a new act, you can make it far easier for the police to shut down head shops that we know are selling legal highs. And there's proof that reduces the amount of use of legal highs, especially amongst children. And it's also reduced the amount of harm because the fewer people ending up in hospital, being admitted to hospital as a result of taking legal highs. So I completely agree that there needs to be greater awareness about what on earth these things are, but we also need to clamp down on supply because we know that reduces harm.
I'm slightly sceptical of that. I think in the short term, yes, maybe clamping down on head shops in the high street might be a good idea. It might initially cause a dip in use, but I think what will happen is a lot of people will turn to the internet, and I think when you're on the internet, you have an even far greater range of chemicals, some of which may actually be illegal, touted as legal highs, which will be sent straight to you through the post. And I actually do think that clamping down on these head shops and making it harder just encourages the proliferation of even more dangerous and more experimental drugs. And I think if you want to talk about reducing the harms that are caused by people taking drugs, I think there's a very good case for looking at our system of recreational drugs, looking at drugs which you've said like MDMA, which actually, if you look at the proportion of MDA users to deaths and harm linked to them, is significantly lower. People are taking legal highs because they're trying to get an easy access to a recreational feeling.
But is the fear then that once they've taken legal highs, the next step is illegal highs?
Quite possibly. I mean, it might well be. Methadone was seen as a sort of gateway drug into this world, but methadone only came into sort of common usage because there was a giant clamp down on the ingredients used to make MDMA. There was also falling purity in the cocaine. So the market was trying to respond to this lack of purity and demand by creating methadone, which caused a level of problems.
I think it's a bit of a myth that if you don't clamp down on what's out there at the moment, incredibly more harmful things will come on the market. What we have already is extremely harmful. I think our perspective at the CSJ is built on talking with hundreds of addicts, those helping with their own recovery, and the stories that you hear about the harm that is caused is phenomenal. You hear about people who think, I can take this in the privacy of my own home and it's fine, but then they take it, they get, you see people sort of headbutting mirrors and injuring themselves because they think they're being attacked. We've heard of lots of people sort of jumping off bridges into water because they think they're on fire. What's out there already at the moment is so harmful that to do nothing, I think, is really leaving people who are developing serious addictions behind. And the government aren't stepping in to do what we know works, which is bringing residential rehab centres to actually help people get well. So that's the area we think the government needs to focus on.
And one of the ways the CSJ is proposing funding that is putting this treatment tax on alcohol. Charlotte, what do you make of that? I mean, we had some mixed responses in our report earlier on. Some people saying, why should responsible drinkers pay for other people's abuse of alcohol or recreational drugs?
I certainly agree. I mean, I think there is a real issue of stigmatising drinkers, and if you drink several levels of drink, you have a drinking problem and you're responsible to help for rehab of other people. I think if the government wants to spend money on residential rehab, which may be a very cost-effective method of doing so, then perhaps it should be taking the already incredibly high levels of excise duty it applies on alcohol and rerouting that. I don't think adding further levels of tax to further sort of punish drinkers of all kinds is necessarily a particularly good or fair idea.
Yeah. I think you agree. If they can find a way of funding residential rehab, we're happy with whatever that way that is. The reason we went for a treatment tax is it's quite a clear-cut, clear ring-fenced way of doing it. And one of the myths out there is that by doing it, actually, it would cost taxpayers more. I mean, it's a small increase of 2 pence on a can of lager, or sort of 9 pence on a bottle of wine. We're not saying pubs or restaurants, just off-licence sales. And what we believe this will do is actually reduce the cost to the taxpayer, because today we're paying around £21 billion every single year dealing with the costs of alcohol abuse and alcohol addiction. And actually we have something in abstinence-based residential rehab centres that we know is effective at turning people's lives around and reducing that cost. So we believe this is a cost-saving measure, and something the majority of the public would, I think, welcome, because it reduces cost and actually helps people turn their lives around as well.
OK, Ed Boyd and Charlotte Bowyer, we have to leave it there, but thank you very much for that debate on legal highs. Thank you.